Welcome back, everybody, to Talking Tigers. Hope you guys are having a good one this week. On this week's show, of course, always Coach G. Pleasure to have you on once again. And also joining us this week is Tigers kicker, lineman, Jermaine Caruthers. Guys, how are you doing this evening?
Hi. I'm great, man. How are you?
Doing good. It's homecoming week. Everybody's excited. A lot of different stuff going on. It should be a blast. And Coach, with it being homecoming week and with it being a Saturday game, just kind of like how do you kind of work that in with practices and stuff when you got all this extracurricular stuff going on and the game being a day later?
We went an extra day of added practice this week. We did an offensive emphasis day, a defensive emphasis day, and we spent a good amount of time on special teams. Having extra stuff because the structure in your day with two real padded practices, or your week anyway, and then you go into your third day, and it's like the kids are in a weird mood because they're so used to doing something else, and then homecoming week, I don't care what any head coach says, it's the least favorite week of the year because everybody's working on floats and dressing up for school and all that kind of stuff. And the kids have fun, but it's like, all right, we got to focus on the game. So it was a good week overall. And tomorrow's walkthrough day naturally after the parade, which is after the assembly. It's kind of nice. As much as I prefer playing on Friday nights, not having to go from the assembly to the parade to pregame warm-up to this, it kind of breaks it up a little bit, but our kids handled it well overall.
Absolutely. Jermaine, I know you're excited with it being homecoming week. Just describe how fun has this week been with homecoming, all the extracurricular activities, the floats, all the special days at school. How fun has it been this week?
It's been real fun. It's always an exciting part of our year, the homecoming game, and also senior night and stuff like that. Going in, painting stuff, and band getting ready for the parade and stuff like that. It's really fun. It's really fun.
Absolutely. So coming off of Hate Tie last week, Battle of the Boot Hill, a lot of energy, as always, with regular games, but this one just a little bit more special because of Battle of the Boot Hill. Coach, we talked a little last week about how much speed Hate Tie has and how you need to really kind of contain that speed. How well do you think your team did in containing that speed on the outside?
I thought we did a good job. I mean, when it boils down to it, it's the Jimmys and Joes factor. Our outside linebackers are quick. Our inside linebackers are able to scrape. Our DNs, for the most part, do a really good job of keeping contained, so that kind of hems up any option play they're going to have on the outside. I think the passion part of the game kind of gave our kids a little bit extra because, it's we've won 2 in a row, now we're 3 in a row there, and it just ended up being a day where the speed that they had clashed with the speed that we had, and we were able to kind of contain theirs. I think Haytie's really young, and I think that, they have really talented football players on their team, but again, they're young, and we do have some more experienced guys, and they were where we were at 2 years ago with a bunch of young kids and sophomores playing everywhere. And now we got a couple sophomores playing, but we have a big JV schedule and all that, and we're able to play our older guys and be junior, senior focused. So that, I think, made a difference in cutting down that speed that they do have. But overall, I think it was, sometimes when you see your kids every single day, you underestimate how fast they really are. Because you're like, you see them every day, they do the same thing every day. And you always look at somebody else's team, and you're like, oh, they're fast. And you forget how fast your team plays. So it was nice to see them go out there and be able to compete at a high level.
Jermaine, going to you, playing in a rivalry game this intense, with a lot of history involved. Just kind of describe as a player, the type of energy that you guys had throughout the week and during the game. Just like how hyped up were you guys going into the game, and then after getting the win, just how hyped up were you getting a third one in a row over Hayti?
Really hyped going in because, we talk smack during the week towards each other because almost everyone knows each other on the teams and stuff like that. And when we got there, us seeing them and them seeing us, I feel like, instant, like it was real crazy. And, after the game, just got on the bus, went back, them get her in on coach. We were all like really excited. We got the trophy back, third time in a row. And it's real fun. Right, about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I noticed you and a lot of the defensive linemen, linebackers flying to the ball last week, getting pressure, getting upfield really quick on the defensive line. Just like how important is that in affecting the quarterback and speeding that clock up and just getting upfield that quick as a lineman?
We just like really try our best to get back there as much as we possibly can. Do need to work on pass rush a little bit more for, that's me personally, but I feel like we're doing really, really good. And yeah, that is. So
now also you're a kicker, and we've been kind of talking about how awesome you've been up in the press box this year. Just like because kicker, it's a position where if you miss a critical one, a lot of people look at you, but as a kicker, how have you gotten better over the course of your career? And, how do you continue to stay consistent as you've been over the course of this season?
I just kind of treat almost every kick like I do at practice. I try to remain focused, at practice and during games, and I just kick it like I normally would. Sometimes I do lose focus a little bit, but I get it through there. Yeah.
Absolutely. And we've been noticing it too on kickoffs and just booing it back there. And of course, that's a really important aspect of it too, is getting that team back in some difficult field position, booting it back there. So I got to say, you've been doing a good job this year, and you've been knocking them through. And it's been really cool because, again, kicking is not something a whole lot of people want to talk about, deal with. They want to see the touchdowns and the points and all that. But, hey, it's an underrated part of it. And I know you take pride in being able to knock those through because, hey, that's an extra point, and those could come in very handy, especially in playoff games.
Thank you.
So let's talk about Portageville and talk about homecoming this week, with it being a big game. It's Portageville's second road game of the season. Guys, how do you feel like, with it being a second road game for them, that you guys need to come out with the energy? But what do you want the fans to bring out with it being homecoming? Of course, they're going to bring the energy, but what do you want them to bring out on Saturday with it being Portageville's second only road game this year?
Well, first, I'm a little jealous of Portageville since we've been on the road for a month. And leaving the road 3-1, I mean, that's good. That's a good stretch. But being away from home for so long, and then the last home game we had was pouring. I'd like to see that big old stack of tickets in the front office just gone. I mean, I think being without Friday Night Lights for 4 straight weeks, even for me, I told my 7th hour class today, I was like, how nice is it that we don't have to pack anything up today? Like, we don't have to pack our bags. I don't have to go check people's bags in case they forgot something. Stuff like that. So when you think about being home and being at homecoming, and you have homecoming court beforehand, and you have the opportunity for us to go undefeated in the conference and all that kind of stuff all culminated into one, looking across the field, because, we're on the away sideline, looking across the field and just seeing a packed stands getting fired up It's kind of what makes playing at Caruthersville special. I mean, we've been to away games in the last 3 years I've been here where it felt like a funeral at the stadium because no one's chanting and yelling and having fun and carrying on. But the Caruthersville people never stop. So it'll be nice to be back in that environment again.
Yeah, Jermaine, I know you guys have got to be happy to be back in familiar territory and have this big game. Just, with it being that extra added layer of homecoming, and you got a Portageville team in here that you're very familiar with. It's just like, how rare are you to see these fans, be back at home and just get them fired up with the run that you guys have been on, especially on the road? How excited are you to get back home and get out in front of these fans?
Really excited. It's always good to, break out for a long run or something like that. Hear everybody in the stands like screaming and stuff like that. Hear your name in the box and stuff, getting the extra point, and then going out there and doing it over and over and over again. It feels really, really good.
Yeah. It's gonna be a fun environment. I imagine this crowd is gonna be rocking. They're gonna be ready to go. Now, Coach, Portageville, looking at them 4-3 on this season. Well, what's kind of the emphasis that you've put on these kids and saying like, okay, look for this for Portageville's offense and look for them on their defense? What kind of emphasis have you put on Portageville this week?
I think a big part of the preparation for this week was shoring up everything from the road that we kind of noticed. We already know. I mean, we've played against a Rayfield defense 3 times when it was at Haytime and it was at Malden. So we know what to kind of expect in that. Different athletes, naturally, but a very similar scheme. I think they run a couple different things on offense. I mean, they have that heavy package, which is almost like a 32 personnel. I don't even know how to describe it. So we've had to address that because there's a couple games where they ran that for an entire series. They do have the ability to throw the ball down the field. I think, Jermonte's at 6 or 8 interceptions or 9 interceptions or something like that now. So again, I'm comfortable with that kind of stuff because he deters a lot of that just by being back there and present. Defensive line wise, we really emphasize getting a solid pass rush, making sure we're following the trapping the pullers, following the pullers and stuff like that. I mean, they're a gap scheme oriented team. They'll run some dive, but the pull guards and stuff like similar to what we've seen in the past. But when it really boils down to it, shoring up everything that we've seen on the road, kind of rewatching and self-scouting some of our film, I think has been a huge help in that regard.
Yeah, absolutely. Jermaine, you hear this about the pass rush, and you mentioned that earlier about getting that pass rush. How ready are you guys ready to go for this week and try to make sure you get those sacks you generate that pressure, but you actually finish and get the sacks on the quarterbacks and put the offense back in worse field position for them?
I'm feeling pretty good going in. Yeah, we're feeling good. We're feeling confident. We're really confident.
I also think you got to feel pretty confident because you got 2 linebackers back there and Napier and Dominguez back there. Just as a defensive lineman, how confident does that make you knowing that you have 2 guys back there that can help clean up the mess that you guys cause the offensive line to have, and that they can go and plug up those holes and get in there and get after the running backs, quarterbacks? How confident, does that make you guys having those guys back there?
Really confident. They're 2 really good players, really strong, both of them, kind of fast. So it's really just no problem for them. So we just go down, eat up blocks while they handle the tackling business.
Absolutely. So Portageville, Caruthersville this week. This is going to be a packed house, Saturday, 1 p.m. Of course, on the call, 12:45 with the pregame, and then we'll have the call of the game on Saturday. So now let's transition on to some college picks and talk about last week. It was a packed slate, and we had a 2 versus 3 matchup, Oregon versus Ohio State. Coach, I know you don't like the Oregon uniforms, but they came away with the victory over the Buckeyes, a crazy good game. It was just a crazy week all around. This week, we're going to only have 2 games instead of 3, but they're big games in the SEC, games that can really kind of determine the playoffs going forward and seeding. Let's start off with this matchup. Tennessee, Alabama, 7 versus 11 right here at Knoxville. It's a very tight-knit spread, and both teams have had kind of ups and downs. Where would you guys go?
It's hard for me to – that's a tough game because you get Alabama off a loss from Vanderbilt, which, you know, they felt like they were embarrassed. I mean, you talk about a Vanderbilt team that's not bad. I mean, you lost to a team that was more humble than you were. You got caught in the chin. And if you look at Tennessee, they're riding a little bit of a high. It's a good football team. It just really – it's going to come down to where the coaches have prepared their kids. I'll probably err on the side of Tennessee this week just because Alabama under Nick Saban would lose and bounce back really well. And they don't lose very often. The conduct of the Alabama kids after they lost kind of made me believe that they're a little young. And I think the Tennessee team, I mean, they're young in areas, but I think they have a little bit more experience with their head coach and then playing in the big games and stuff like that. So I'm going to err on the side of Tennessee.
Jermaine, how you feeling about this one? You going to stick with coach? It's been a good formula for players this year.
Not really too big in the college football, but yeah, coach is confident. I'm confident too.
Hey, I'll have to tally up the records, but looking at it, coach has been right a lot of the time. And hey, if the players, it's a good formula to look at where it's like, oh, well, hey, listen, coaches knows what he's talking about here. I'm going to roll on the side of caution. Next one, probably it's the biggest matchup of the week, a top 5 matchup, Georgia and Texas. That one, big one in Austin. Top 5 matchups are not disappointed this year. Texas, the only undefeated SEC team left. Georgia and Texas, if you had to pick this one, which team are you going with?
Stop it.
As much as I really like Georgia's the way they do things, I'll be honest with you. The way that Georgia started against Alabama, not a huge fan. I mean, they went out and they were getting pushed all over the field. They tried 2 or 3 different defensive structures. Alabama went out there and like man one and manhandled them the entire first half. They let them claw back in the second half, and I think that's where the confidence in the athletic ability and the coaching for Georgia let them come back. But Texas is there. You can tell that they've rallied behind their head coach. You can tell that they're well coached. They have look at their backup quarterback with. It's a Manning, but their backup quarterback with 2-0, and one of his wins bumped them up in the national ranking. So I'm going to go with Texas in this one.
God.
Jermaine, I assume you're going to stick with Texas. You're going to stick with coach here?
Yep, you guessed it.
Absolutely. And you mentioned you're not a college football guy. Are you more of an NFL guy?
I know, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Who do you go for in the NFL?
My favorite team is the Dallas Cowboys. I get a lot of negative comments at school about it, especially with our most recent loss against the Lions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I wore a Michael Parsons jersey to school and like everyone jumped on me. Just started demolishing me.
Yeah. I imagine being a Cowboys fan is not for the faint of heart, especially when you have a team that has that much prestige and then you come off a loss like that. But so Dallas Cowboys, I know you're really hoping they get back on the upswing. coming off of that loss. And
Yeah,
your
no,
guy
since like
Parsons.
94.
That's not my hero like me. That's not my hero. So,
Like, there's people that have never seen Dallas win a playoff game. Then they won one a couple of years ago.
Mm,
I don't
I
think
have
so.
to
I
fact
think
check
the Raptors will come before Dallas wins big again.
yeah, Jermaine, I imagine that's what you've been hearing a lot of at school this week. Coming off of that loss.
yeah.
Well, hey, here's a better result here next week, and getting back in the win column. So, everybody, that'll do it for this edition of Talking Tigers. Coach G, Jermaine, thank you so much for joining me on this edition of the show. Good luck on Saturday against Portageville, and we'll talk to you next week for the final regular season game against St. Genevieve. So you don't want to miss that one, everybody. As always, new Talking Tigers episodes drop Friday mornings, 8 o'clock. Tune in, and then tune in to the pregame show at 12:45 and get ready with kickoff at 1 o'clock. So thank you guys so much for joining us on this edition